Okay, let's get started. It is 11 o'clock U.S. Eastern Time. My name is Kevin Smith, and this is going to be the Personal Finance Lab New Features webinar to highlight everything that is new for Fall 2024. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be shared on the blog post with our new features by this afternoon once the webinar is concluded. So let's get started. Just so everybody is aware, there is an option to post questions to the QA throughout the webinar. Go ahead and do that. I see those questions, and if you have anything coming up, I can answer that for you. So we have a lot being released. Actually, before I get started, can everyone see my screen and hear me? If so, please post to the QA. Let's see here. Okay, great. So here's the agenda of all the stuff that's coming. I'll go through these in detail. The first is the biggest one, the combined budget and stock game. The second one also applies to the budgeting game. We have a new income tax calculation. And then we have our new compound interest lesson, which is part of a bigger update that I will talk about. We updated a ton of videos over the summer. The Learning Center now has a search functionality. For the admins, we have a new assignments overview report and a bunch of searches just for the admin. And then at the end, I'm going to talk about the stuff that's coming for this fall. So let's jump right into it. So the first is the biggest one, the combined budget and stock game. So if you've used our platform in the past, you know we have both a budgeting game and a stock game, and they never really talk to each other. This new update gives teachers the ability to connect the games directly, and so students can actually interact from one game to the other. So the way it works is that students in the budgeting game have the ability to transfer money to their investing account, which they can then use in the stock game to build their portfolio. Students can also transfer money back from the stock game to the budgeting game. So if, for example, they transfer too much money, they can get it back and use it to build their savings goals. So let me show you really quick how that works. So here I am in the budgeting game, and I'm in a game that allows the transfer of money. So before, students could only transfer money from their checking to their savings account or back. Instead, now they also have the option to transfer to or from their investing account. And the investing account goes to the stock game portfolio. There's a few things to keep in mind if you're using the combined game, because this is pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward, but there's a lot of kind of other things that this kind of impacts that we had to keep in mind before we added this feature. The first is that a lot of teachers start their students off with $100,000 or some huge amount of money in the stock game. If you do that, the combo game is not going to be very fun for your students because they can just go to their investing account, pull out $900,000, and then, you know, the budgeting game is kind of pretty easy once you have a giant nest egg you can just spend. So by default, if you turn the combo game on, we set the starting cash for the stock game to just $1,000. You can even set that amount lower because the entire point of this is that students are going through the budgeting game, they're building up their savings, and they're transferring some to investing, and they're kind of getting that real experience. So all that together is, we need to make sure that this kind of checks out by making sure that you don't give your students too much cash to start with. Second, you'll see up here my net worth is $2,000, and I have only $2,000 in my actual checking account. The reason for that is because I have $100 right now in my investing account. The stock game portfolio value is added to your student's net worth in the budgeting game. That means if you go to the budgeting game rankings, you would be able to see the rankings by net worth, which is a combination of the money that the students have in their budgeting game accounts and their investing game accounts. So it's the global net worth is all being ranked against. That also is a very small change to the stock game portfolio. The stock game rankings are no longer by dollar amount. So in the stock game, the rankings are now by percentage return. That means if you have one student who transferred $300 to the stock game and you have another student who only transferred $50 to the stock game, the rankings are still fine. It's based on how much they grew that money they transferred in, not by with the dollar amount they transferred. So the stock game rankings are going to be always consistent in that context. Another recommendation we have if you are using the combined games is that you might want to turn on the option to have fractional shares trading. Fractional shares means students can buy like half a stock or a quarter of a stock, which means that if they're only transferring, let's say, $100 a month, they'll still be able to buy a share of Amazon, which is far more expensive than that, or a share of NVIDIA. That way they can just build their portfolio based on percentages and how much money they actually can transfer, rather than having to save $1,000 before they can buy a share of a stock they want. It's a little bit more realistic for investing, because most major brokerages allow that these days, Robinhood and all the other ones that are popular with the younger audiences. So yeah, just to recap, things to keep in mind. If you start with a combined game, give your students very little cash in the stock game. Otherwise, it makes the budgeting game way too easy. Oh yes, transferring money to your investing account, it does count towards the monthly savings goals in the budgeting game. So at the start of every month, students are asked, how much you plan to save this month. If they it counts both the money they transferred in their investing account and the money they put into their savings account. But it does not count towards their emergency fund goals. So if you're familiar with the budgeting game, students earn bonus points when they save up $500 and $1,000 in their savings account as their emergency fund in case something goes wrong. Then we give them bonus points for that. Transferring to the investing account does not count towards their emergency fund. So they're still encouraged to keep at least $1,000 in their savings account before they really start investing. It's up to students if that's how they want to approach the game, but that's what we recommend, and that's within the personal finance best practices. And as I mentioned with the combo game, net worth includes the stock game portfolio value, and the stock game rankings are now based on the percentage return, not dollar amount. That way students who transfer different amounts of money into the stock game can still be ranked fairly. Next up, this is another one for the budget game, not quite as exciting, but it's actually even more work for us. But we revised the way we calculate the income tax for students when on their paychecks. So on the old paychecks, it was a flat tax. We charged 17.65% for federal, and we add whatever the teacher entered on the tournament creation page as the income tax for the state income tax. The new system that we implemented uses far more realistic withholdings. So it annualizes their income, it applies the standard deductions, it applies the appropriate tax brackets, and it is a far more realistic and accurate withholding that they'll see in their paycheck. All else equal, take-home pay. This means if you use all the exact same settings as you did last year, the student's take-home pay is actually going to be a little bit more than it was last year, because we're doing the standard deductions and tax brackets and stuff, that they're going to be earning their take-home is a little bit more. So in the game itself, let me roll forward, get my paycheck. You can see it here. Base wage, tips, all the game income, and now I have my federal income tax, my state income tax, my Social Security and my Medicare is all withheld as it should be. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you use our express setup, we use a 5% rate for the state income tax. And the state income tax is still a flat tax. It's just 5% on your taxable earnings. So taking out your standard deduction and everything based on your annual earnings, it's still use a flat tax, no tax brackets or anything. But federal does use tax brackets. The students might notice this as they're going from part-time mode, where they're the part-time student, they're not earning that much money, to when they're going into full-time mode and they're earning a lot more money. That means their actual effective tax rate is going to be higher when they start their full-time job. And then everything else is basically the same. I see my whole breakdown, I see my net pay, and it goes into my checking account. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward, but yeah, that was a bigger project than we expected. The next one is a relatively small update, but it is kind of a keystone to a bigger update that we're launching. This is our new compound interest lesson. So previously, if you've been using our lesson library, we have stuff about compound interest, but we didn't have a lesson specifically on compound interest. So for example, our investing lessons talk about compound interest a lot. We had an activity, a little compound interest calculator, but we never really got into the nitty-gritty about how compound interest works, which is a foundational thing for personal finance. And the reason we hadn't done it yet is because we were working on building out our roadmap for our financial math lesson set, which is coming throughout this fall. We're going to be releasing lessons every few weeks, and this is the first one of the show. So our compound interest lesson, you'll be able to see it in our lesson library. It has an animated video is probably the most important part of it, where it really walks students through it without having to read a ton. We talk about the calculations, we talk about definitions, we give some examples of simple versus compounding interest with charts and things, and there's of course a quiz at the end. We're doing a lot more exercises of compound interest that we're planning to release this fall, so stay tuned for those. Next up is our updated tutorial videos. So tutorial videos are always super important for every class. We always recommend teachers, when they set up their assignments, include some tutorial videos to walk students through how the games work. It massively reduces the amount of class time you spend answering questions and really helps students get started. You can find our tutorial videos in the menus. Under the budgeting game, you can find the tutorials here. For the stock game, you can find the tutorials here. And as the administrator, when you go to create an assignment, we actually have the tutorial videos in like the first set of recommended lessons. You can see it here in stock game basics. We have 4 tutorial videos here to help students understand what it means to trade. More towards the bottom, we have our budgeting game section, which has the same thing. There's 4 or 5 videos that this is the stuff students really need to know to be successful in the game, and we recommend students go through those before they actually start either game. Yeah, that's not a huge update, but it is an important one because we had not updated these in a couple of years, and so it was getting out of date from how the platform actually looked. This one's actually a little bit more important. This is a search functionality in our Learning Center. So historically, your students would only really have access to the content in the Learning Center that you as the teacher put in an assignment, which is fine. But if a student is looking up, trying to figure out what a word means, or is trying to find things that are above and beyond just the bare requirements for a class, it's kind of hard for them to do that. So now in the Learning Center, anytime they're on anything for the assignments, there's a search function at the top of the screen here. They can search for a stock, and they'll return all of the lessons and all of the glossary terms and everything else we have that have to do with stocks. Which means that there's a lot more that's in this the search function than there is in assignments, because there's a lot of stuff we have that there's no quiz just with the definition of an EPS, but if they search for EPS, they'll find a lesson that mentions it. You can also see in here that I have a bunch of tutorials for teachers, so setting up your class or challenge, resource packets, grading rubrics. If you are a teacher and use this search function, you'll find all the admin guides and help and all the stuff that we have available for you as well. Students don't see these. You only see these if you're logged in as a teacher and you search. So the whole goal in this is to make things a lot easier for the teachers to find what they need to be successful in their class, and a lot easier for students to find things that are above and beyond just the bare required meeting. We all know that not a lot of students are necessarily going to want to do more than the bare required meeting, but we want to make it available for them. This actually becomes important because if you use the certifications that we have in Personal Finance Lab, our investing certification or our personal finance certification, that's probably going to be requiring students to do stuff that you didn't necessarily have in an assignment in your class. And so the search function will help them find everything they need in order to earn those PDFs. The need to know is just keep in mind that you as a teacher probably will get more use out of the search than the students will, because you're going to be able to find the lesson plans, the grading rubrics, the tutorials, everything that we have that will help you be successful as a teacher for these topics is going to be in the search. Students will just be able to find lessons, glossary terms, articles, things like that to help them learn more is kind of the objective for that. We also have a brand new assignments overview report. So the assignments overview report came up. It was a very frequently requested feature for teachers. You'll find it if you go under administration, under assignments, there's this assignments overview. I don't think I have any assignments in this class, so I need to go to a different one. Here we go. Now, the assignments overview, what this does is it lists all the assignments that you have in your class in one place with the dates so you understand what they're doing. If you're giving your award, it shows what the reward is and how many tasks and how much time did you ask the students to do and all this stuff. So it's a very straightforward way to just get a bird's eye view of how did I structure my class. Do I need to change anything? You can see the progress report, you can see the class summary report, and then you can go to the edit page too to change anything you need to. So yeah, this is just basic quality of life stuff. We should have had it forever ago, but we didn't know about it until teachers mentioned this would be helpful. So that's a call to action for all the teachers in attendance. If you see something, let us know because we'll do it for you. Also with the admin reports, we added search functionality. So there's 3 different search functionalities we add, and this is another big one that came up from teachers of stuff that would really make a difference in their classes. The first one is on the assignments. when you go to create an assignment, you can now see a search bar here, which will let you filter down to stuff on a topic you want to learn. So for example, if I want a certain compound interest, I can search for that. I see I have that compound interest calculator, which we have for a long time, and we have that new lesson for compound interest. And I can add those tasks to my assignment without having to scroll through an entire list of 300 different things. The other search functions we add are on the reports. So a big one is the registration file. We've all seen student forgot their password and they need a teacher to reset it. Let me get I don't have any ones with a lot of test students, but you can now search by username, the first name, the last name, or the email address. Most students don't have an email address entered, but you can search by first name or username is going to be the most common for most teachers. Once you just filter the list straight down to who you want to see, and so you can get to who they are and get their problem solved. This nice little password reset button, or this edit button to change their username, or anything else that or send a message to them and it'll appear in their messaging center. Anything you as a teacher need to do. This applies to the registration file report, the assignments report, the rankings report, and the user accounts report. So any report that lists all of your students in a row, you can now use this search function to find the student you're looking for right away. Yeah, that was the big stuff, but now I want to spend a couple minutes talking about the big stuff that's going to be coming this fall, because some of the stuff we wanted to release over the summer, but we haven't finished yet, and so we're going to be rolling it out. The big one is mini games. So this is a very loud page, and I'll walk through exactly what we're talking about here. And before I can do that, let's go back to the budgeting game. Get to the weekend here and show. I already have my September budget. Oh, the game reset because I changed my tournament. Let me switch back because I changed sessions on a different page. Here we go. Alright, let's roll through and get to the weekend. And these mini games apply to all 4 of these weekend choices. So you might already realize we have a mini game right now for working extra hours. It's a little 2048 slide puzzle game. But we don't have anything for the rest of the 4. This semester we will be releasing our games for all 4 of these, including a new one for the work extra hours. So the first one coming up, it's called the Wealth Whiz Quiz. This is if the student chooses to study. This mini game is going to give students 60 seconds to answer 10 questions pulled from our data bank of personal finance knowledge-based questions. The students will earn game score points depending on how many questions they're able to get right in those 60 seconds. The second game that we're releasing is the grocery comparison shopping game. And this one will be launched if each student chooses to take care of household chores. And the way this game works is that the students are going to be going grocery shopping. They have 3 items on their shopping list. Let's say it's carrots, paper towels, and cereal. They're going to be given 3 options for each item on their list, and they need to decide which of these is the best deal. So each item has a quality score. How good is this? A quantity. So there's 1/3 of a pound, 1/2 a pound, 1 pound, and a price. And so students are challenged to weigh these 3 factors to figure out which of these is actually the best deal. And sometimes items might be on sale, and so the price is going to be reduced a little bit, and we'll see, is that going to be the actual best deal now it's on sale, or is there still something else that's going to be cheaper? Cheaper and better, I should say. It's not just about cheaper. And so as they play through that, they will earn bonus points towards their quality of life, depending if they were the smartest shopper by choosing the best deal of all the items they had on offer. Next up is this complicated devil. This one is the weekend planning game if the student chooses to socialize. In this case, the student has all day Saturday and all day Sunday free, so they can plan their weekend. And there's a bunch of different activities they can take part in with different friends that are out throughout the city. And they need to add items to their schedule. And basically what they need to do is they need to decide, is the cost of this and how far away it is going to work with my schedule? And they can add and remove things to build out how they want to plan their weekend, depending on how far they want to travel, how much they want to spend, and how many quality of life points they would earn for all of these items. There is no real win for this. It's really how much students can organize their time and how much money they want to spend. And then however they choose to do it will earn them quality of life points that will apply to their game score at the end of the game. So it's really about time management more than anything. And the last one is our cafe game. This is going to be a new mini game coming for the work extra hours option while the student is in part-time mode where they work at a cafe. In this case, the student is waiting tables. So they need to take items from the kitchen out to tables that demand it, and when tables finish eating, they're going to have dirty dishes that need to go back to the kitchen. And they're going to earn money for however many items they can successfully wait on in the 60 seconds that the game lasts. So all those we're very excited about. The Wealth Whiz quiz is the first one coming. The development for this is almost finished. I can't promise a delivery date for that quite yet, but it is almost certainly going to be by the end of this month. And if your games are already set up, your students will have access to these games as soon as they're released. They don't have a massive impact on the total scores of the game, but it is a little bit more interactive and a little bit more educational for the students who are playing. And we didn't do a webinar at the end of last spring, so this is I just wanted to give a brief update of the things that we've added since my last webinar early in the spring. And all of these, just if you need to find them, you can go to our blog. On PersonalFinanceLab.com's homepage, there's a blog, and it will list all the stuff that we release, and we'll sometimes update some stuff that we released before that has a big impact for a given semester. But last spring, the first thing that we released is updated lesson plans. So if you like our lesson plans, or if you haven't even seen our lesson plans, check them out. It talks about how to address a wide range of personal finance topics with resources that are available in Personal Finance Lab. It has glossary terms, it has worksheets, it has grading rubrics, all kinds of great stuff for you. We updated all of our lesson plans between February and May, and so you can see, and we added a bunch of new ones too. So you can go here and view all of our lesson plans, and of course they also do appear in that new search function that we released. The second one is our stocks by sector. So our stocks by sector is a function that lets students browse stocks in the stock game. So if a student's in the stock game and they want to say, one of the key lessons in investing is diversification. So what they can do is in the investing research, there is a explore by sector function now. What this does is it lets students look at all the different industries or sectors and industries within those sectors. And then they can click the button, which is going to show them a list of, here's the biggest companies that are in that sector. Looks like this one's taking a hot minute to load, but I will look into that later. Here we go. So if I wanted to see the containers and packaging. So these are the biggest companies in containers and packaging. I might not want to be quite that granular. Maybe just want to see everything that's in consumer discretionary, which is kind of a massive sector. So I see Amazon, I've got Tesla, I've got Home Depot, and yeah, this will load a lot more peers for it to do. So when students are just getting started, a lot of times, a lot of lessons, including some of our lessons, we'll talk about using a stock screener, which is all well and good, but it's really complicated for somebody who is just getting out, making their very first trade. They don't know what they're looking for in a PE ratio, for example. This lets them just kind of go for the 5 different sectors, find a company that you like, and add it to your portfolio to get started. And then we can change the companies, we can build that portfolio, we can make revisions to it as we get on, but the first, most difficult part for most students is really making that first jump, which is why we added it. The other one that we added, this was a little bit earlier in the fall, was our stock comparison tool. Our stock comparison tool actually does tell them what is EPS, why do I care, and it gives them the tools they need to compare two different companies. And it walks them through our research tools in order to find the information that's going to really help them make those decisions. So how do you get a stocks quote? What does an income statement do? And give me a data point for it. What's a balance sheet do? And how do I look something up for it? Cash flow statement, historical prices. Let me pull it up real quick to show you what it looks like. And this is an assignment that you can have for your class as well. And the way this tool works is it walks students through. It has prompts showing them exactly what we're going to be looking for here. Let's say I want to look at KO. I already used my stock lookup tool and I found a ticker symbol. So I put KO, and now it's saying here's how I find the price in the quotes tool. I'll put it in. EPS, this explains what earnings per share is. And so Let's get the EPS, put it in here. It talks about what it actually means and why it's going for it. And the important thing for this is it's not just students entering these numbers. I'll get to it in a second here. Dividends, put 1. And then we're going into the income statement and getting 1 data point from 3 years of the income statement so they can find a trend. Which does that. I can see the income trend for this company. But I won't go through a whole thing, but the whole point is you see there's 2 columns here because after the student goes through the first company, it prompts the second company too, and they do the same thing for something else they want to compare it against. So if I'm looking at Coke here, it's going to suggest, maybe look at Pepsi. And that's where that whole being able to look at stocks by sector comes in, because they can find another stock that way in the same sector so they can compare it. At the very end, it'll show them, this company did better for EPS, this company had a better net income trend, and then it lets the student make the final decision, but it teaches them kind of how to do that basic research and make that informed decision for them to make their first buys. Again, for this one, it's in the research, in the investing research under basic research and comparing stocks, just any student can get any time, or it's also a lesson that you can assign in the intermediate investing topic section. And last is the income tax filing activities. So every personal finance class covers income tax. We have a interactive activity for filing income taxes. Again, this one is a lesson. It's in the personal finance section about income and taxes. And this walks students through the entire process of filling out a 1040. And so it gives them a W-2, it gives them an interest statement they had from a savings account. It gives them information, the tables they would need to actually figure out what their taxable income is and all that stuff. So this is basically the student is sitting down and they're filling out their 1040 for the first time. Every field on this has validation and gives students help if they need help on it. And we have tooltips on here to help students understand what exactly we're doing for each thing. So they can't go through it without getting everything right, which is fine. And it really kind of is, you're doing this for the first time. You're getting this information, you're filling it in, and you're making it happen. This was a big one that we launched right before April, and so we just want to make sure that students or teachers are aware this lesson exists, because it's really a powerful one for most classes. And last but not least, we are launching a teacher panel. So we are looking for teachers who want to join our teacher panel to help us review the biggest impact items that we can add for this spring. If you want to join, you'll contact me at kevin@PersonalFinanceLab.com. This would basically, if you join the panel, we're going to send you surveys once in a while. We're going to ask you to join a focus group call maybe once a month or once every 2 months to just review some of the items, the stuff that we've come from the previous meeting, and give you a chance to just talk with our product team one-on-one for some feedback. And on top of that, even if you don't join the teacher panel, we are going to give you the option every couple of weeks. You're going to see a survey pop up when you log into Personal Finance Lab. And it's going to ask you some questions about a function that might exist or something that you might want to see, or give you a couple options of things that we're thinking of adding to the platform. The first one of that is we're going to be adding this week, this coming week I should say. We're considering for the part-time version mode of the budget game to not have students have a car. We might just have them have a bus pass. Simplify the game a little bit, make it so they don't need to be paid as much, and have the car as another feature for the full-time mode. And so we're going to ask teachers feedback before we would decide on what we actually want to do for that. And so there'll be a survey that's going to pop up the next time you log in, not on Monday, asking your opinion on that. And so getting teacher feedback, very important to us. And yeah, you can contact me at any time at Kevin at Personal Finance Lab. But if you want to join the teacher panel, there will be focus groups. There's going to be some one-on-one discussions and things. And you can sign up for that at kevin@PersonalFinanceLab.com. And yeah, that is it for today's webinar. So before we conclude, does anyone have any questions? Can we have students move from renting to purchasing a home to lessons on mortgages? So we do have one lesson on mortgages right now. We're working on building it out. And the reason why we don't have purchasing home in the budget game right now is because dealing with a mortgage and an amortized loan is kind of a bigger scope than the 12 months that they're going to be playing the game. However, we have been workshopping a new type of game, which would be longer term, taking students all the way to retirement. That's kind of a black box project right now. We do have some prototypes that we're interested in teachers who have joined our teacher panel to preview with us to see if we have something that we might want to be releasing for the spring. So if you want to check that out, what we've been building, and get some feedback, we'd love to have your ideas on that. Otherwise, most of the teachers who wanted to see this webinar said they would need the recording because this happened to be during a lot of people's class time, which I understand. If you do have any questions, you can contact me, Kevin at PersonalFinanceLab.com, or your account managers. They're all happy to help. But yeah, that's it. Quick 30 minutes, and thank you for joining, and have a great afternoon.